This is the How Did We Get Here podcast with your host, Nancy Jackson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a while, but I'm glad that you're here. And if you are new, I'm welcoming you also. It's been a while since I recorded something, but there's been so much going on that it's taken me a while to organize my thoughts and to get everything in some kind of cogent order so that it makes some sense. So actually, 2024 is not a normal year. It's been crazy. There's just been so much going on. I can't even I can't keep track of it. And the summer of 2024 has really not been a normal summer either. It has just been jam packed with a lot of things. So much political activity. We have wars. I mean, there's wars going on. Well, the Middle East, Israel, Gaza, Hamas, um, Lebanon, Yemen. It's just and it's escalating. It isn't getting any better. It's just escalating, and so I really don't know where that one's going either. But that has been going on all summer, and I didn't want to ignore that either. And then there were assassination attempts against Donald Trump, two of them, and just that entire drama and the threat and the danger that's involved in that. And then there was going to be something a kind of a light-hearted and an upbeat event, and it was going to be the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. They're being held in Paris, and so that would have been a really good one to for a little relief from all the headaches. But unfortunately, they started off badly. And it was a real disappointment, but it was also a big shakeup. Um, the Olympics are really meant to bring the best athletes in the world together to compete on a level playing field and represent their countries and bring pride for themselves and for their countries mainly, but their families, their friends, and their trainers, and all the people that are involved in it. It's just a very exciting and thrilling week or 10 days or so that it goes on. And they started the Olympics with this opening ceremony. And that's where I got snagged, and I just could not ignore it. The problem is that I don't know who thought it up, and I don't know if you watched any of it or not, but it was basically a satanic ritual. If you didn't look close, you may not have noticed, but if you paid attention at all, you could not ignore some of the grotesque and downright evil and just really ugly representations that were in that ceremony. It was big outdoor extravaganza, and it was held at night. And there were different scenarios in it, and one of them was well, there were a lot of images that were flashed up on big screens, and a lot of them were satanic in their symbolism. So that one kind of threw me off. But then the big one was a mockery of Leonardo da Vinci's famous portrait of the Last Supper. well, there was a band of like woke actors and drag queens that reenacted the scene from the Last Supper. And they actually placed each character in kind of the same exact position as Jesus and the 12 apostles at the table of the Last Supper. And people were just furious and very, very upset. It was desecration, it was blasphemy, and it was mockery of one of the most revered um, the center of the Christian belief system, and to make fun of it that way. And it was just a very painful thing to watch. Oh, and then the other thing that they had references to the French Revolution, but it's Marie Antoinette holding her own decapitated head, and it's a very bloody image and a very ugly. Well, it's just very grotesque, and so it was kind of a nod to a reference to the French Revolution. So people were just really, really upset, and there was a lot of backlash. There were sponsors for the Olympic sponsors that were furious, and they canceled their sponsorship because of they didn't want any part of this. They didn't want to be a part of it. They didn't want to be associated with it. It was bad for their brand. And I guess personally, they were offended. And so, anyway, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, who did this? And why did they do it? That was my big question. Why would anybody want to ruin the Summer Olympics by tainting it with this ugliness and this grotesque display of something very evil and just really ugly? So, and there were a lot of posts about a wild mockery and the desecration, and people, as I said, were very, very upset. And when I saw it, I was actually I was speechless. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to make of it, but I know that it's important. And I decided to just take a little time to try to slow down and focus in detail on some of the things that I saw. So that's what I did, and that's part of my excuse for why it's taken me so long to get another podcast going here because it I just needed time to digest all of it and see if I could make some sense out of it. So then right after that, right after the opening ceremony, a weird thing happened. The entire city of Paris went dark. They lost power, and the entire city was black or dark. It didn't last a long time, but it was long enough that people noticed. But there was one building that stood high above the city that stayed totally illuminated, and it was kind of a dazzling um, moment. And it was the Basilica of the uh, Sacre Coeur, which means Sacred Heart, which means the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Catholic terminology. And it was a church dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It was built 140 years ago. And there have been people praying continuously in that church for 140 years. It has never been unoccupied or darkened. It has been lit up, and there have been people inside praying in there for the last 140 years continuously. And it's a historic landmark for the Church of France. And it actually was built as partially as a stand against Freemasonry and socialism that opposed the Catholic Church in France 150 years ago. And so I was struck by that. And there were a lot of comments that people made that I thought were kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find them. People were saying, I guess they were people that were there for the Olympics or they were tourists or something. And I thought this was kind of an interesting observation. Um, one of them said, my window, dot, dot, dot. And they were conversing. She was conversing with another person. Does she live across from that huge Christian church? Was referring to the Sacre Coeur. That was the only spot in Paris that still had power. What triggered it, you ask? Well, your opening ceremony did. It mocked God. Repent. And another comment was maybe God was trying to wake them up. It was terrible. I guess that's what they meant by the power outage. That was another big part of this the Paris Olympics extravaganza. And then the other thought was, all this stuff about the French Revolution. What is that about? Why were they even referencing or going back to that? That was so long ago. Why would they bring that in? Is that part of their history, of culture? Why why bring in the French Revolution and poor Marie Antoinette with her decapitated head? I wanted to learn more. So I did spend some time uh, going in for a deeper dive. And actually, the American Revolution was 1776. And the French Revolution was not long after that. It was 1789. So American Revolution was uh, they wanted to preserve liberty, but they also wanted to keep order and keep their government intact. They did not want everything to just go haywire. And the difference with the French Revolution is that everything unraveled. And it had a completely different and a very tragic outcome in France. And that was what kind of struck me as why did all of that happen? And what I discovered was that, and I did use I want to quote someone who's a Frenchman. His name is Xavier Ayral. He's a historian. He's from France, and he loves the country very much, but he also knows that it's a very troubled place. And he said this about uh, the French Revolution. He said the French Revolution was promoted by the Freemason philosophy of fraternity, equality, and liberty, established in 1717, which was way before the French Revolution. So this philosophy had been brewing for many years before it ever erupted or before the French Revolution took place. Let's just put it that way. And he said that Freemasonry was and is an enemy of the Catholic Church. So I was struck by that. Um, and I guess I just really didn't know. You just start wading into this and you get in deeper and deeper and you find out all kinds of things that you just didn't know before. And this was one of them. And, this is kind of the general description of what really happened in the French Revolution. It was a cultural revolution. They basically destroyed the fabric of the French culture and French society. And it wasn't just 1789. It went on for years and years after that. I mean, it was just one uh, ring of, it was just kept going, and one thing led to another and another. There was just a huge amount of turmoil. And one revolutionary spokesman said this: "We must convert the oppressed French nation to democracy," whatever they were going to, however they would uh, interpret that democracy. I guess leaving monarchy and going into a more democratic form of government. And you must entirely refashion a people whom you wish to make free, destroy its prejudices, alter its habits, limit its necessities, root up its vices, and purify its desires. And then going on with the same train of thought, to achieve this end, the new rational state claimed that sovereignty of the people was to eliminate French traditions, norms, and religious beliefs. Their purpose was to stamp out all of that cultural history. They just wanted to get rid of it. And they wanted to replace it with a new, I don't know, just a new everything. And the new governing bodies were determined to destroy every vestige of the Roman Catholic Church. The main thing was that there was a very articulate group of people. They were political rogues. They were not loyal to the monarchy. They wanted to take it down and for their own political interests. And they they were treasonous to the monarchy. There were unjust tax policies, and that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And law and order just unraveled. But see, there were people in the crowds that just stirred things up and made it worse. And there were no leaders who were leading for good. They were leading for tearing everything down and not trying to build anything up. A lot of problems that needed to be dealt with. And the king was not well liked, and he wasn't an effective ruler. So first when the crowd got stirred up, first they killed all the priests and the religious. Then they went after the monarchy, killed them basically, or the people that were in charge, Louis the 16th and his wife Marie Antoinette and their family. And then they went after the educated class and got rid of them. And at the end, it seemed like they just killed everybody. It was like a slaughter, and they destroyed their own country. And really, what happened was the madness of the mob took over, and anarchy became the rule of the day. And it's kind of frightening to think about that. I mean, especially when there's so much going on in our world today, and there are so many people so upset all over the world. I mean, it gives you some idea of what it must have been like for them at that time. So, anyway, this is what the Olympic ceremony was referring to with Marie Antoinette's head on display. She and her husband, King Louis the 16th, were blamed and slaughtered for everything that had gone wrong. And they were actually more likely to be like scapegoats and for more for a more sinister objective. Whatever the real story is, the cry for democracy turned into anarchy. Not a good thing. So thinking about France and looking at being kind of shocked by everything that I saw in that. And you know that the government must have, the powers that be sanctioned that. It didn't just happen on its own. Some people that were big, powerful decision makers are the ones that made that happen. It didn't just spontaneously happen by a small band of people that thought it up. It was pre-planned. And so I think that it made me think that France is still struggling with its own identity and their own loyalties. Because I just don't think, I think it's been going on ever since. That country has been through so much, and there's just too much turmoil going on there. And there's so many different factions. It's not just Freemasonry. I mean, there's socialism, communism, Marxism. You've got all of those elements in there. You've got Islam, which is a very powerful uh, um, cultural influence in France now. You have secularism, and you have, as far as Christianity and Catholicism go, I think they're kind of hanging by a thread. Uh, it isn't completely extinguished, and the beautiful cathedrals, and I mean, there is still a core of faithful people there, but they're just barely hanging on by a thread because there's so much, and there's a lot of desecration. There's a lot of burning of churches and buildings. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in France, and I don't know what the Jewish population, the influences in France, but I'm sure that that's a factor also. So I'm just saying that I think that France is really kind of in a crisis, and we need to kind of keep an eye on France, and hopefully things will get better. But again, I was really struck by what I saw in Paris Olympics. But I want to get I plan, this is part of a series. I mean, I plan to talk about some of the other events from the summer because I think they're so important. But I did want to include in this discussion a dear priest that I know who was willing to share his thoughts with us on the subject of this French Revolution. And this is Father Daniel Bowen. He is the national vocation director for the Order of Mercy, or the Mercedarians. Actually, if you want to find out more about them, you can go to orderofmercy.org, and they are referred to as the Mercedarians. And this is an ancient religious order. It goes back to the 1200s, and Father Bowen is stationed in Columbus, Ohio, and has a thriving ministry there. And I'd like to have him come back again and tell more about his ministry. But for right now, I would like to talk to Father Bowen and get his thoughts on the French Revolution, the Paris Olympics, and everything that's in the Last Supper, and all the blasphemy that took place there. And so, anyway, I want to introduce to you Father Daniel Bowen.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Appreciate very much having the time to be with you and to share and yeah, and reflect on this past summer. Yeah, quite a summer it's been, huh?
Yes, I love it.
And of
So,
course, yeah, lots can be said about the Olympics, particularly, and just overall, the Olympics are usually a beautiful moment for the world, right? Because all the nations of the world are invited to to send their best of their athletes, to compete in a healthy way against each other without violence or without it's an opportunity for humanity to kind of put on its best face and have a healthy competition, and so it's a beautiful thing, right? And normally it allows a country to showcase its history. I can remember not too many years ago, China hosted in Beijing, and their opening ceremony was a beautiful kind of celebration of their Chinese dance and different artistry. So they wanted to put forward their best. This has always been the tradition of these ceremonies for the country to kind of highlight their culture, you know, uh, whether it be dance or music or just things of that nature. You always want to put your best to kind of, because you're hosting this wonderful event. And I just think Paris really has, is in my sense, lost its way. And maybe it's uh, still lost, and maybe yes, it's been lost since the French Revolution. I mean, as a Catholic, a faithful Catholic, and a priest, I would certainly say it's the case. And yeah, Nancy, it caused you and maybe many others of us to kind of reflect upon what was this French Revolution. Of course, in America, United States, our country here that we live in is kind of a country that's been founded on revolution, right? Again, of course, the sense of the English coming here as a colony, people's here wanting to have their separation from England and fighting the American Revolution to found our country, and our forefathers wanting to have a country that was largely based on pretty good ideas, right? And we could say Judeo-Christian ideas, and the idea of liberty and that. A lot of things not completely separated. Some of the ideas coming out of some French thought. One of the founding fathers of the U.S. being Benjamin Franklin was often to France quite a bit. There was a lot of back and forth there. Of course, even the Statue of Liberty was a gift to our country from France. So our country, and again, French and English always kind of had kind of a competition between the two of them. Of course, both being, or at one time, both great Catholic nations. Of course, England through Henry VIII, right, particularly choosing to denounce, right, and start a revolution against the Catholic Church. Um, some years before France, but then yeah, France kind of followed suit in what is known as the French Revolution to really throw off Catholicism and make the primacy. But even attacking its royal family, right? Again, whereas King Henry, I'm still the king here and I'm in charge of the church. There it was not just the destruction of the church or putting it under the king and queen, but it was even getting rid of the aristocracy. So, and really a movement of secular humanism, right? Again, putting man above God, and that doesn't ever really work well. But nonetheless, that's what was done there. And if we look into the history, and Nancy did a great job in giving just a brief summary, but it was an attack against the church, as you rightly said, with Notre Dame Cathedral being seized to make into a new secular kind of culture where our country is going to be deciding everything, and that's our cult of worship. Ourselves, in a sense, we're going to worship ourselves, is what really you're thinking, what we're talking about here. But and it wasn't just a happy thing. Like they went to Carmelite convents, marched out the Carmelite sisters, and beheaded them.
Right.
It was founded on the blood of faithful Catholics. They killed religious and priests and bishops. They killed the king and queen because, of course, they were affiliated with religion as well. So it really was a pretty devastating move. And of course, it's celebrated by those who are anti-God, right? Who say we don't need God, or God just something on the side. Oh, we've evolved now. We don't need God anymore because we're smarter. This is an erroneous type of thinking that unfortunately has really plagued Europe and sadly the United States now, and we're seeing the fruit of it. And if the further confirmation of this Olympic ceremony, this wasn't like a random thing. You're going to host these Olympics years ahead of time because it takes a lot of coordinating to, there's some places where they built an entire stadium because they knew the Olympics were coming. They didn't have something, but they wanted to do it. So many years. So, the artist that was selected to create this vision and the ceremony, opening, closing ceremony, he was hand selected and picked to do this. And, they're not like, well, just come up with something and just we'll watch it no, all of this would have been looked at and approved. So this says a lot about how sadly ill the French culture still is, celebrating its revolution against God, against Christianity particularly,
Right.
um, and the mores of Christian, right? Again, drag queens and other kinds of things that are anti-Christian, right? And yes, there is demonic overtone because this is such foolishness to think this. Oh well, if we get rid of the living God, we'll be fine. You know, nature abhors a vacuum. So does supernatural abhor a vacuum. And if you don't have the living God there, the demonic is what comes and takes its place. That's the fact. Oh well, we can just we can get a no. It doesn't work that way. It's God or the devil. There really is no in between. You can say, well, I don't buy into that. Here's the bottom line. You're going to die and you will be judged. Your culture, you can sit there and say, oh, my culture did this to me. Every man and woman has their own decision to make. And God, Jesus died for all. There's an invitation there and a way out of all this madness to wisdom and to knowledge and to joy and peace and hope that begins here. That'll never be completely fulfilled here. But that doesn't mean we run our cultures into the ground, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah, really sad, and even then when they put this forward with these blasphemous symbols and outright, yes, demonic imagery, and when they were confronted on it and called out on it by, Bishop Barron rightly came out right away with something, and a good number of churchmen, even some people in the secular culture, and they kind of dodge. Oh well, that really, this is
Kind of denied it. They denied it. In fact,
denying it. Oh, they're making like oh, we're sorry if you were offended.
they keep
Sorry
calling
that
it
you were
something
offended
like,
doesn't mean we're sorry that, I mean, like they're still saying we don't care. This is how we feel and what we want. This is how we want the world to see us. So we're celebrating the post-Christian era. We're
yes,
celebrating French uh, leading the charge,
that's right.
in an
Mhm.
anti-Christian, anti-Christ manner. And
Yes, I thought it was so shocking. It was just such a blatant
absolutely,
and shocking presentation of, yeah, it's all eyes on France, and this is what we get.
there you
I
have it.
was really shocked. I really was.
Which is sad because, yeah, when you think about the French contribution to the church, huge,
Right.
right? John of Avila,
Yes.
Teresa of Avila, Saint John Vianney, right? Our Lady of
Right.
Lourdes. I mean, a great long history of great
Mhm.
wisdom and church, and now, I mean, obviously in the 1700s, the late 1700s, this idea of putting the secular kind of thought first, the Masonic kind of thought, which obviously is still there. And even down to this day, there's been evidently no cultural repentance and conversion, especially
Right.
if they're going to support these ceremonies and they're saying, well, this is it. I
Mhm.
mean, I know that obviously doesn't speak for every person in France, right? There are the faithful in France,
Right.
but it would say to me the majority of French, think this is okay.
That was the impression that I got too when they interviewed some of the people that were attending. It seemed like, who cares? They didn't even care. I
Yeah.
guess they're so used to it in their daily life that they don't know any better. I was really shocked.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a shame, because we would
Yeah.
hope that there's been
Hmm.
some cultural kind of wake up to see, to go, to be, uh, with, to recognize a life without Christ is not a good life, and to
Hmm.
relativism and embrace anti religion. It's a shock. It's a shame. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but to think that you'd be so. I mean, it's one thing to kind of usually in polite company, at least you're polite. This wasn't even being polite. It was just right in
Right.
your face. Here's where we're at,
Really in your
what we
face.
think,
That's right.
and this is the right way, and celebrate with us. Um,
Hmm.
you know,
Right. Right. Now, I do have one question for you. What can be done? What can people do to stand against this or to respond to it? What would be a good response to the desecration and blasphemy that took place there? Do you have
yeah. I
any
mean,
suggestions?
It's I mean, obviously the challenge. We're not in France. We're coming from another part of the world and country. I mean, obviously the immediate response is for us to turn back to God, right? For us ourselves, for
Right,
ourselves personally, this should be a motivation for us to become more faithful, right? And repent and convert and to do and pray for that culture, pray for those people, pray for the world, pray for all the people that have saw the ceremonies, that
right,
even if they weren't Christian and had no idea, maybe they're from a country that the Christianity isn't there, that if this is their impression of that our faith is a joke or whatever, that you know that Christ reveal himself truly to them, you know. But that would be, I think, the first response. Ourself, begin our prayers, get on our knees, do penance,
right,
because God does not want to be mocked. And
right.
again, if our culture is just going to say, "Oh, it's no big deal," then you've kind of decided that you agree with them, and that's not going to go well. If we're
Right,
faithful believers, we need to stand up for the faith. And when
right.
similar attacks and such things take place in our country where we are, and there's been some movement. I think what was it in L.A.? There was some drag queen event
Oh,
like nuns.
oh yes, that was a big one.
Again, if we hear this is going to be
With the
on in our
Baltimore, with
country,
the in Los Angeles, with the I forget her name now, but I know who you're talking about.
that was sort of the beginning, towards the beginning of this year. The or
Yeah,
not
it was
within the
last
last
summer.
year. But these kind of things where we can, then there's got to be.
Right,
Um, Obviously, praying for France. I mean, there could be. I mean, there could be. I mean, a lot of what they do is tourism today. They keep a
right,
lot of the churches and things alive because they know that Christians will come there and spend their money in their country to see these
mhm,
places, even though they could care less, or maybe there's no interest whatsoever. I mean, I
mhm,
don't know if that means you need to cancel your trips to France or choose to go elsewhere. I don't know if that's the answer. It could be. I mean, that'd be one way, but um, but again, you'd want to make known that's why that is. We're canceling trip because this, but I didn't really see any movement in that direction. Honestly, I
right,
didn't really see that. I don't know if
right.
that is the answer. That would be one thing. But I think the person that, again, we can't control the
That's
world.
right.
God's in charge of it all. He saw all of this. He permitted it. Like it, he doesn't want it. But again, there's that free will element that we
Right,
as humanity, individually and collectively, have been gifted with, right? And of course, we can choose to love. We can choose in our response to Christ's selfless giving of Himself, through His passion, death, and resurrection. We can choose to embrace that and see that as a good and be thankful, or we can just mock, right? We can I mean, in some cases, we're not much different than the people 2,000 years ago, right? When
right,
Jesus walked the earth here in the flesh, he
right.
invited all to come to him, right? But not all would embrace, right? The true
And
love.
I think that's why I really was so happy to hear about the Sacre Coeur, Basilica of the Sacre Coeur that was lit up overlooking Paris. Because to me it was kind of a God wink.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was God saying, "I'm still here, and I see you, and I'm with you." Father Bowen and I could talk for hours. Um, about a lot of things, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. And so we're going to have to save our questions for another session. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, any comments that you would like to share, please do. You can reach me at how did we get here 1884 at gmail.com. I'll repeat that. How did we get here 1884 at gmail.com. And I hope that you will join me for the next session where we're going to explore some more things that have happened this summer of 2024, and see how things all fit together and where are we going. It's not just how do we get there, but it's also where are we going and where are we headed. So it's always good to think about that and curious minds want to know. That's all I can say. And so I guess that's our motto. But
I hope that you will stay with our series, and I hope to see you the next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the How Did We Get Here podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this episode with your friends and family. For more information and to connect with Nancy, email howdidwegethere1884 at gmail.com.